So what
Yeah.
tips can you offer for someone that's trying to shift to one of these diets?
I think we talked a little bit about step-by-step approach, and I think that's
Mhm.
really important when it comes to trying to adopt a new eating pattern. It can seem overwhelming, if you are used to eating a lot of sugary foods or fried foods or eating out often, to try to totally overhaul everything can just really seem overwhelming. And so I think taking it one step at a time, and it might be as simple as, let's say you were going to try to eat more plant-based. It might
Mhm.
be, okay, I'm going to take breakfast today and I'm going to try to do a plant-based breakfast. So maybe that would be, like steel cut oats or a whole grain cereal with maybe a little bit of fruit on it. And rather
Mhm.
than dairy milk, maybe you do an almond milk. And what's
Yes.
really interesting is I was trying to transition my husband, who I spoke of loves, he loves dairy, he loves sweet things. And I'm not saying anything that he wouldn't tell you himself. But I said, let's just try almond milk. And at first he was resistant, but now he
Um,
actually prefers it over dairy milk. So it's like, that's kind of a success story of just
mhm.
one little change can help
Right.
move you, in a direction. And so think about it, one meal, maybe one day a week,
Mhm.
and trying to make those little changes. I like to
Yeah.
encourage people too, when you go into the store, maybe go into a section that you don't typically go in, maybe a cultural foods section, and try something new. And, that kind of helps to broaden your horizons.
Yeah. One thing I like to do is a veggie egg scramble.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so that's one way I can incorporate vegetables. So I just, chop up the vegetables really small and then stir fry them in some avocado oil, which is my
Oh,
favorite oil to use now.
yeah.
And then, add so I'll do like, we have a garden out on our country place. And so we
Nice.
grow zucchini and yellow squash and kale and cucumbers. And so what I'll do is I'll cut up the squash really small, add some
Mm-hmm.
onions, some garlic, and then throw
Yum.
in the eggs and oh, it's so good. And
That is
yeah, it's
yummy.
it's all about finding ways to incorporate fruits and vegetables into your diet. So,
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. That's another small step that you can take, is look for opportunities to where can I fit more vegetables in. And I think
mhm.
that's a great idea, at breakfast. Avocado is a great heart healthy
I love
fat.
avocado.
I am a huge fan of avocados. And
Avocado toast is a
yes, yeah,
yes.
unseeded toast, right? But
Yes.
recently too, I've been doing just like a diced up avocado at breakfast, and
Hmm.
boiled eggs are easy. Sometimes on the
Yes.
weekend,
Hmm.
I'll boil 4 or 5, and then you can just grab those and go. And if you're trying to
Right.
reduce cholesterol, you can leave out part or all of the yolk. But again, that's just a good protein source
Hmm.
that's easy to do in the morning. Or egg beaters, egg substitute, the liquid egg substitute, a lot of times we'll use that, just because it doesn't have the yolks, it doesn't have the cholesterol,
Hmm.
and it's easy. You don't have to crack shells either. So it's good for
Yeah.
omelets.
So, are there any other specific foods that one would make sure to include whenever they're trying to change their eating patterns?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about veggies. We've talked about whole grains. We've talked some about, the types of dairy. You want to go with low fat dairy or a plant based alternative. We've talked about minimizing added sugars. We haven't talked a lot about fats, and that's something that I think a lot about. I mentioned the Mediterranean eating style earlier, and it really focuses on those heart healthy fats.
Hmm.
So plant-based fats, like we think about olives, olive oil, avocado oil, canola oil, corn oil, really, so thinking plant-based as opposed to the solid fats. And with that, fish is rich in what's called the omega-3 fats. You're probably
Yes.
familiar with those. Yeah.
And I love salmon.
I do too. I'm into cedar plank salmon that you can put on the grill and cook.
Ooh, you're making
Um,
me hungry.
and easy to do. But,
Mhm.
the types of fats that are in fish are really have a lot of heart health, and the nutrition guidelines for diabetes and prediabetes really encourage eating fish at least twice a week. And so
Mhm.
I think for a lot of people, that's another small step that you can make. Think about,
Yes.
how can I fit in fish once a week or twice a week? And
Mhm.
how do you like to prepare fish? Do you have ways that you enjoy it?
Well, so my brother taught me how to use a cast iron skillet to cook
Okay.
salmon.
Yeah.
So
How do
good.
you do that? I don't have a big cast iron skillet. I've just got a small one.
Yeah. I just put avocado oil in it and put some salt and pepper on the salmon, and that's it. Cook both sides,
Kind of
and
sear it.
my
Yeah.
children just love it when I do that. So
Ooh, now I'm
yeah,
gonna have to
yeah,
try
you were talking
that.
about your children. So I have three boys. They're 18, 20, and 22.
Okay.
So two are in
Okay.
college. So yeah, so I'm
Okay.
somewhat in the same boat as you as
Yeah,
far
I only have
as having one in
one
college.
boy, but he's
Yeah,
about the same
college.
age. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I think too with, kids, people that have kids at home, it's introducing them to new foods and how do you prepare things like fish in a way that people will enjoy it and eat it. And I think
Mm,
about a patient that I worked with a number of years ago. She was trying to focus on fitting more fish in. And she said, okay, here's how I figured out how to do it. One day a week, I'll buy a prepackaged salad greens mixture and put
okay.
a pack of, foil packed tuna or salmon on. I'm like, well, that works. That's easy.
Yes.
And then they would usually eat out once a week. And she said, I'm just going to make fish my go-to order. That's what I'm going to do. And
Okay.
a lot of people are scared to cook fish at home. And so,
Yeah.
eating out's a great opportunity to fit in a fish serving. So, it's those small steps,
Yeah.
we're talking about healthy fats and the healthy fats in fish.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my nephew just put salmon in the oven, salt and pepper, put it in the oven,
Mhm.
and that turned out really good too. So,
It does, and you can also do it in the oven at like a little foil pack. Take a piece of aluminum foil, put the fish in. You can put lemon on it, or
hmm
sometimes I'll put asparagus in with it and cook it, and you can put a
hmm
little dash of soy sauce if you like that. But it's easy. It doesn't have to be difficult or complicated.
True.
Yeah.
And the more simple you make it, the more likely people will do it.
Right. I'm a huge fan of 5 ingredient recipes,
Yes, me
five
too.
ingredients or less. And, I think with that, it's going to help to keep you closer to nature as well. The fewer, things
Mm,
that you're putting in there.
yes.
But it's all about simple. I agree with you. In my book, What Do I Eat Now? There's actually a section that talks about cooking some at home and some strategies.
Okay.
One thing that I'm a fan of intermittently is what I call assembly meals. And so it's something as simple as what I was talking about with the salad and fish. Maybe you buy prepackaged salad greens and you add, maybe leftover grilled chicken or foil
hmm
packed tuna or salmon. You can put some heart healthy almonds or
Yes.
walnuts on it, and so you're not really having to cook, but with 4 or 5
Right.
pantry things that you may have on hand, you can pull together a healthy meal. Yeah.
hmm So many people find they fall short on getting enough vegetables. What types of vegetables are good to eat more often, and what are some ways people can make it easier to fit in vegetables? I know we did discuss a little bit of this just now,
Mhm.
but do you have any other tips or advice on that?
Yeah. So a couple of things. When you think about how you're portioning your plate, so let's say you pull a plate out of the cabinet for your evening meal, about
hmm
half of the plate you want to cover with the non-starchy vegetables. And so there
Yes.
we're thinking about things like broccoli and green beans, and you were talking about your zucchini squash that you all grow,
hmm
cucumbers, tomatoes, all those good things.
hmm
Um, Carrots are a non-starchy vegetable. A lot of people think if they have diabetes or pre-diabetes that they can't eat carrots, and that's not true. So they actually are low in carbohydrate. So
hmm
about half your plate, those non-starchy vegetables, and we were talking about trying to do a variety of colors, as you're able,
Right.
red, yellow, orange,
Colors
purple,
of the rainbow. How many
the
colors?
colors, see, you're good. Yes.
When my kids
Colors
were
of the
little, I was
rainbow.
like, okay, how much of the rainbow do you have on your plate?
I love that. But yeah, you're exactly right. Because having that variety of colors, gives you lots of different nutrients. So we've talked about salads, but one of my favorite ways to prepare vegetables I'm really into right now is roasting them. Do you ever roast vegetables in the
Yes, I
oven?
love roasted Brussels sprouts. Oh,
Yes.
so good.
Yes. That is probably my favorite. And so the really interesting thing is when we were growing up, my mom didn't roast Brussels sprouts. She would boil them and they smell
Yes,
horrible.
they were horrible.
And that's just my personal preference. Some people love them boiled, but I just remember when we came home from school, if you smelled those Brussels sprouts cooking, it was a
So
bad day. But, about 5 or 6 years ago, I had a patient I was working with, and she was telling me how she roasted her Brussels sprouts. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to give them a try. And now truly, it is probably one of my favorite vegetables, but it's just so simple. You can roast about any kind of vegetable.
Yes.
I'll roast broccoli a lot too. But you just wash it, cut it in kind of even sized pieces so it cooks evenly.
Right.
And you want to dry it real good if you wash it, because you don't want it to steam when it gets in the oven. You want it to kind of roast. But I'll just put it in a zip top bag, toss it with a little bit of olive oil, or you could use avocado oil, a little bit of fresh garlic, fresh pepper, black pepper, and 425 for about 25 minutes. So what temperature do you do yours at? Is it about the same?
I don't remember.
No. Put it in the oven and turn it on.
A recipe for it. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've actually done the Brussels sprouts. I
Yeah.
have Brussels sprouts in my refrigerator right now, ready to be roasted.
I do too. Maybe tonight.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. So my introduction to roasted Brussels sprouts was actually at a restaurant. And when I had them, I was just like, I've never liked Brussels sprouts before that. And so I'm like, okay, now I know how to eat Brussels sprouts. But I'll tell you one thing I like to do with a lot of my vegetables is just stir fry them in avocado oil. And I do, all of my squash. I do my asparagus that way. I do broccoli, just stir frying it and then I put a little bit of Himalayan pink salt.
Yeah. Oh, that gives it a really nice flavor.
Yeah.
And I've had that at my house at different events, and people will be like, oh, that must be an expensive salt. And Himalayan pink salt is not, but it has a really nice flavor. I have a grinder, that I'll use.
So do I.
And we have a lot in common. But the cool thing about the grinder is if people are trying to manage how much salt they're eating, we were talking about the DASH eating approach that really focuses on reducing sodium. The grinder is kind of nice because you can measure, you can grind, turn it as far as you want to measure kind of how much am I getting. And I've had people tell me they'll actually do one grind on the grinder into a teaspoon to see how much it is. So it's a good way to help manage salt. You can do a smaller or lesser grind, but the flavored salts like the Himalayan pink salt really add a totally different twist to things. And so I'm a fan of that. I bought flavored salt a year or so ago that was truffle flavored. And I love truffles. Some people don't like them, but that mushroom flavor, but it was nice.
I love mushrooms.
Do you grow mushrooms in your garden?
No, I just like to eat mushrooms.
Just like to eat.
That's one of the things that I put in my veggie stir fry in the morning with my eggs is mushrooms as well.
Mushrooms.
Yeah, I like the baby portobello mushrooms.
Yeah, I do too. They have a really nice kind of meaty texture. And, as we were talking about the vegetarian plant-based eating approach, mushrooms are a great way to kind of transition if you want that meaty texture as you're moving into a more plant-based eating style.
Right, because you can do a portobello, like the large portobello mushroom burger,
Exactly.
or I've seen other recipes for them too, but just you feel like, by having the large portobello mushroom burger, it's like you're eating a hamburger without meat.
Yeah, because it's about the size of a traditional hamburger patty. It's got that meaty texture. You could season it, with pepper or garlic, whatever.
Right.
Some people that are doing the really low carb eating approach, I've seen them use the portobello mushrooms actually in place of a burger. And so, they might put a portobello on each side and then maybe lettuce, tomato, whatever in the middle. So kind of interesting approach. Yeah. Or a turkey burger in the middle if you're trying to, eat leaner. So just those little things.
Absolutely.